Hey, hi, and hello. I am Even, fellow media scholar and music lover, here to have a discussion with you. To set some ground rules, this is a space of positivity and open dialogue. All comments made in this format are all from a place of positivity, support, and curiosity. Disagreements are bound, but in a cesspool of infighting, let's keep this a pleasant space, shall we? Fantastic. Disclaimer, this was written back in March, so some of the commentary is not updated. I wanted to keep the original organic responses I had when first introduced to this topic. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Here I am, minding my business, chilling as the world falls apart because, well, COVID. Since the world stopped, I returned home, bought a new TV, and prepared for long nights of binging on all the media I never had the time for. To make a long story short, I ended up down a YouTube rabbit hole and somehow came across modern K-pop. Now, I'm not going to lie. I am aware of K-pop and a lot of its cultural nuances that are specific to the genre, but I had not followed it for about 6 years. Also, I was more into the 1990s to the 2000s K-pop group, so if you want to hear about that, I am more than happy to go into it. So, in scrolling through the various videos, I noticed a group called SuperM. I remember vaguely hearing about this so-called supergroup, but it honestly did not catch my interest. When I saw the thumbnail and recognized Shiny's Taemin, I was like, hold up. Was switched out with them. I said, this is legit. So, my little pajama clad self tuned in with no real expectations either way. The music video begins with epic music, crisp visuals, and my first reaction was, who are these people? No, really, who are these people? Now, before you come for me, I am 6 years removed from K-pop. That's like 20 years in K-industry time. Like, I might as well have died and been resurrected. So, after my confusion on who 5 of the 7 members were, I tried to get into the song. It was easy listening, but I would be lying if I said that I was fully engaged. Until... think you big boy throwing 3 stacks? I'ma show you how to ball you a mismatch. Opinionated, but I'm only spinning straight facts. Throw it back, I might throw this on the 8-track. Don't we just love those copyright concerns? Well, I looked up from my phone and had to run that part back. Can we be honest for a moment? Like, really honest? K-pop and rap, especially in English, is not it most of the time. We bypass it because we like the songs, but rap parts on their own are often rough, to say the least. In hearing this verse, I was genuinely vibing with it. I can actually repeat that verse in public without strange looks. Kind of. Anyway, this made me switch from watching actively to passively. I had no idea who anyone was besides Taemin and Kai. I'm so sorry, Baekhyun. After learning names, Lucas and Mark are the 2 that stole the show for me. Mark for his verse, and Lucas because, well, have you seen him? Honorable mention goes to 10 because his ending dance sequence was amazing. That kid is so talented. Yes, I use the term kid because I am old. I wouldn't say I'm old, but for the sake of not being age shamed, let's just leave it there. I'm just a tad older than this crew here. From my first viewing, honestly, I didn't love the song. Still don't, but I love a lot of the elements of it. Mark's verse, the beat drop, and Baekhyun's vocals are what kept the song solid. For a US-focused debut, there are many things I wish were done differently to market and get maximum potential out of the song. Granted, I am just a regular civilian, so take my opinions with a grain of salt. Emphasis on grain of salt. Even though I wasn't sold on the song, I became deeply interested in SM's approach to this group and the intentions for going forward. Admittedly, my college degree did have a focus on media studies, so I tend to have an academic interest and approach to these topics. Without going into too much detail, this is a group that's designed to transcend Western barriers and promote Asian talent in a K-pop package. It's really interesting what went into planning and forming this group. With 3 veterans and 4 fairly new artists, it gives an interesting mix of talent. Now, Jopping. First, I would like to say to whoever made up this word, no. Because when it's jumping and popping, it's jopping. Yeah, it doesn't get much cornier than that. Maybe it's my American accent, but that word just doesn't sit well on my ears. With that said, I would have loved if they took this corny phrase and ran with it in a more party song based space. The music, visuals gave serious, epic, and sexy vibes, but the focal point of the song doesn't match that in my opinion. In listening to the song without the visuals, I could see this beat dropping at a house party on a Friday, maybe after a few drinks and some strange EDM remixes. Marketing the song in that direction on the title alone would have been more effective in reaching a wider Western, specifically American audience, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, the visuals for this were fantastic, but I almost wish they had another song to match this epic, borderline fantastical imagery with. I am aware that SuperM released a few other songs as part of this mini album, which I did in fact listen to, and I have thoughts as well, but since this video is focused on Jopping specifically, I want to stay on task. Due to the order in which I was introduced to SuperM, I watched the teasers and trailers last. I must say, the intro videos for each member was amazing. So much thought and creative detail went into them. Shout out to all of those behind the scenes on the visual team because they did an outstanding job. The individual teasers helped me get a better feel for what SM wanted to market about each member. Once again, I will say that Mark really shined here to the point I have to give in and figure out where this kid came from. So I googled. In doing so, he, Taeyong, Lucas, and Ten are part of a group made of subgroups called NCT. When I saw how many people were in it, nope, that is doing a lot for me. Spoiler alert, my mind was changed. But side note, the way Mark presents in SuperM versus NCT, especially the Dream Unit, is kind of jarring to say the least. Going back to the point, for the heck of it, I also searched EXO to see what they were up to, and wow, they lost a lot of members. Like, yes, I know this was a while ago and I'm late, but last time I checked, they had just debuted, so I'm like, oh, what happened here? What happened? Where'd they all go? Also, so glad to see that SHINee is still going on and doing their thing. We all know that they're always going to hold it down. So when looking at a K-pop song in general, I think it's kind of important to look at the whole promotional era. In the case of SuperM, it was primarily in America, and in watching their behind the scenes and their mini reality show situation, it was clear that there were a lot of nerves and discomfort. As a whole, I think their partnership with Capitol Records helped give them an extra boost, so the song did do, from my perspective, at least decently well, all things considered, because there's a lot working against Asian artists, you know, in the Western market, particularly in America. They're just not visible, they're not really there, and they're typically put on these stereotypical gimmick looks, so trying to normalize them as just artists who happen to be Asian in a Western setting is very hard, and I don't really think it's been done, nor has credit been given the way that it should have been to those artists. So again, shout out to them for trying to break these molds and push that, because we need it. It's 2020, my goodness sakes. Like, why is this still a thing? That said, when watching the US promotions, I cringed because, well, let me specify. Not because of them, but because I had in fact seen them before. Being totally honest, anytime I saw a group like them or BTS, I just turned the channel or skipped past it. It was not because I didn't like them. I just truly did not have an interest. I didn't even know what BTS actually looked like either, or how many members they had. Like, that is how disconnected I am from the East Asian music scene. Yeah, I just learned how many members they have. Don't judge me, please. Like, I know they're huge, they're a supergroup, and I know they're everywhere. I was very late. I've had a lot of things going on. But getting back to the point, realizing that they were right there in plain sight, and no one around me really had a clue of who they were, it made me wonder, okay, well, what was the success and how was that evaluated from the record company's point of view? Because this is an investment. Every comeback is millions of dollars, hoping to get that back in some way. My unresearched, emphasis on unresearched, guess as of now is that they are likely more focused on Westerners who already know K-pop, who might spread the word rather than trying to reach the overall general public. At least based on what I've seen so far. I did send this song to a couple different people that I know who are completely oblivious to K-pop, and the average answer kind of ranged from okay to it's alright, but I wouldn't add it to my playlist. For the music video, the comments overall were like it was nice to look at, but it didn't really spark further interest. I do think that based on the teasers, the execution of this song did not necessarily live up to what it ended up being. I think SuperM will come back harder next time, at least that's my hope. And the transition from Korean pop expectations to American is quite different. And K-pop, unfortunately, has been labeled as something weird that teenage girls in their parents' basement salivate over. So shaking off that image is going to be a nightmare. While that is definitely not the whole truth of K-pop, it still doesn't have a favorable view, I think, in the general public. So marketing is always going to be hard. And since they're marketing the group as a super K-pop group, it kind of only works for people who already have interest and know what K-pop is and know who the heavy hitters are of K-pop. If you have no clue, it's kind of like, this is the superstars of Bollywood. And it's like, well, I don't know them from Adam. Although I actually do. Bollywood's great. You should definitely tune into that. It will be interesting to see if their next comeback continues towards this style of promotions or if they shift and try to push a more American influenced image. I look forward to seeing what SM has on the table and the places that SuperM could possibly go. So, all that to say, I'm back into K-pop, so to speak. And thanks to COVID, now I have the time to actually write all of this down and all of my thoughts. And again, I want to clarify that all that's written here are my immediate reactions. I now know a whole lot more about the group, a whole lot more about where K-pop is today. There's so much more I would love to add on and say, but I really want this to not only be an introductory video, but kind of a journey of how I got myself back into this, and well, hopefully we'll build from here. Going forward, I do plan on getting further into the producers and arrangements and the songwriters, because I think all of those people play a huge role in how K-pop is shaped today, particularly since a lot of them are non-Korean. And you can hear that in some of the sounds, you can see that in the way that it's packaged, and it's interesting. It's really, really interesting seeing how globalism is representing itself through K-pop. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't really want to get into because I still feel it's too early to tell. And again, COVID, like the world's kind of shut down right now. It's not a good way right now to kind of tell where it's going. But I think it's interesting and it sparks a lot of conversation. So look forward to that. I will get way more in depth. If you want more on like music theory stuff, that's not really me. Although I do have musicalness in me. Like I played instruments in X, Y, and Z. I strongly recommend going to like classical musicians react and a couple other channels like that, which kind of get more. This is literally just a discussion, just to talk about the music and the promotions and things I found fun, things that are interesting. So it's going to be a mix of stuff. But going forward, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this stranger's thoughts. Thanks for tuning in, and I had fun writing this, like really and truly. It was super fun, and I'm doing this as a side hobby, so this is not my job. I have no aspirations to become a YouTuber, unless they randomly cut me a check to cover my student loans, but even then, maybe not. But if there's genuine interest in me talking more in depth about specific groups or specific topics or specific songs, please let me know. I'd be happy to oblige. I'm just getting back into the K-music scene. Although I said that this was recorded back in March, I'm still figuring stuff out and still figuring groups out. So please, if you got anything interesting and awesome that you think would be worth kind of dissecting and looking into, let me know. I'd love to talk about it and put it out there. And again, the comments, I'd love to see whatever else you all have to say. keep it positive, keep it good. You know, I tend to avoid anything I don't like, I won't do on here because I just don't think it adds anything. There's a lot of spaces where people talk about things they dislike. At this point, I don't see that for me because I don't know what it adds to, because I have literally no background to change or give reasonable insight as a whole. So I'm only gonna focus on things that I do personally like, because I just think getting into the things I don't like is kind of counterproductive, and who's that for? You know, it's just not the space, not the energy I want to have on here. So just a heads up, if you maybe suggest something and I don't do it, part of that could be because I just personally couldn't get into it, and I don't want to put something up here that's just not positive. That's just, you know, who is that for? These groups have enough issues and enough people coming at them as is. Then moving on from there, yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed because there's a ton of groups and there's so many, and I don't know if maybe it's because I'm out, but it feels like groups just have overall just like 10 people on average, and that's just a lot to kind of figure out. And I'd like to know names because it's just fair, you know. I don't like talking about grouping like that one and that one and that one. They all have names, they're all individuals, they're all people. So I'd like to highlight those when I can, but suggestions are great. And so I hope you enjoyed this talk with me. I hope you enjoyed hearing, you know, what I kind of had to say. I know this isn't as in-depth as I normally would want it to be, but again, introduction. So hope you have a wonderful day, evening, night, existence, whatever it may be. Signing off, even, and keep the discussions going.